Hey, hey, sounds like the cat's out of the bag. You have found Allegiant Webwise, where for you web agencies, we discuss the business of being a web business.
Hello and welcome to episode 6 of the Allegiant Webwise podcast. Yes, you've got the right episode. I hope you've sat and listened to and watched episodes 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And if you haven't, please go back and watch them. You don't necessarily need to watch them all in order. This is not like a true detective series or anything that you're suddenly going to miss an episode and you're missing an important part of any journey. Hopefully you've got something from all of the episodes, and please leave your comments on any of the episodes that you might have watched. And of course, like and subscribe to our channel. Today, we are talking the dynamic intersection of web development and artificial intelligence known as AI. I'm your host, Mike Devitt, joined by my partner in crime and insightful co-host, Martin. And together, we're going to unravel the intricacies of harnessing AI to build WordPress websites. So in an era where digital innovation is paramount, understanding the relationship between AI and web development has become really, really essential now. So whether you're a seasoned developer or just somebody who's a bit curious, this podcast aims to be able to be your go-to, to be your resource to understand this a little bit more. So let's dive into this. So the question is, AI and building websites, is it all that it's cracked up to be in 2024? However, we still got a long way to go. I know everybody's very, very excited about it, and they do different things, and they work with either ChatGPT or Copilot from Microsoft or Google, Google's own version of the artificial intelligence. So just get your feet under the table. Let's have a chat about this. Martin, what's been your experience of trying to build websites with AI, and have you actually built any websites with AI for any clients yet?
I haven't built any for any clients. Just before I answer that in more detail, what you're saying about watching the podcast is true. Don't forget, guys. For those who like to listen to it, we're on Spotify and Apple and Amazon. So have a good listen as well, and listen especially to episode 1 because it tells you what we're all about. Coming back to AI, I haven't built any for clients that I've completed at the moment. One that I've built little bits. So I've got one website that's alive and out there in the wild, and it has bits of AI in a fairly simplistic fashion, and I'll say what I mean about that in a minute. In terms of your question about excitement, all it cracked up to be, I think people like actors say don't work with kids or animals because you set yourself up. And for us, it's talking about AI without going, this is very early in 2024. Come back in about tomorrow and it will have changed, because the pace of change is extraordinary. I'm extremely excited by what can be done. And is it all cracked up to be? That really depends on who you talk to, whether you are excited by what's going to happen or dismissive about what's going to happen. Both camps have got real good reasons. So do you want me to go into specifics about what I've done, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we'll come on to the specifics of what you've done in a second, and I just want to sort of just add around the topic about whether building websites with AI. This isn't just about building a website with AI where you hit you answer a number of questions perhaps, and then away it goes. You kind of follow like a wizard, add all of your answers to the questions that have been asked, and then you hit the go button, and all of a sudden this WordPress website pops up in front of you. I think generally with AI, we're now also talking about all of the tools that other providers. So let's just talk about Canva, for example. Martin, I know you use Canva.
Yeah.
Canva has the ability to add a prompt to create an AI image. And we've used tools like that to produce something. And I did use Canva to produce an AI image, which I did then go and use on a client's website. So just in relation to answering the question about whether we've actually used this for any client sites, as in created a website and then gone ahead and used it on client sites, I haven't done so either, because I don't believe it's at the maturity level that it needs to be. That's just my own personal opinion. I know you've got the same opinion at this stage as to using it in the wild. It needs to have a certain level of maturity. So I think that just kind of broadens that answer for both of us. And so coming back to what have you tried in terms of a website build? Yeah, please let me know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, on the Canva thing, what's interesting, when you're developing websites, often the problem is not technical issues, it's sourcing content. And what's a big problem generally is getting images. If your client doesn't give you images, then they're like, okay, can you go and get an image? And of course we go to the free stock markets that are out there, Pexels and the various other ones.
So do the AI builders as well, don't they? I mean,
yeah,
they're dragging in images when you're creating this WordPress website and populating it with images. They're just going and grabbing images based on whatever answers that you've given.
Sure,
so
yeah.
On the
yeah,
theme, they ask you for a general theme, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, you've got AI, you've got generative AI. They're not the same thing, but I mean, they're both obviously. AI itself is just sourcing material that already exists, which is what we do. What's interesting outside of the technical thing is that the problem with images is the whole copyright issue. And even on the free sites now, there are court cases coming up at the back end of 2023 where people have put copyright free, supposedly, off the likes of Picabay, Pexels, etc. And now court cases are being brought against those people. So then as web developers, you're like, okay, well, am I exposing myself from a legal point of view to all that sort of thing? And for AI, because the generative part of it is, well, this is a brand new image. Sure, it's obviously got the idea from it somewhere, but the actual image that's generated is unique, because the theory is that every single time you press the button and say, get me an image, it creates something different. Until this point, and we're early 2024, there hasn't been any issue of copyright where, it's going to law. That's currently under investigation as well. And I'm sure during this year, that will also change. Someone is going to eventually be able to say, hey, look, if you say you want a painting in the style of a painter who's still alive, and you like it to do this, and it produces a copy that could easily pass as work of that painter, even though it's AI, maybe there'll be a court cases coming along. So I think the whole issue of AI, people tend to think about the tech, is it mature in terms of, does it work, is really important, but there's much bigger issues as well, in terms of around how we protect ourselves and our clients. So
yeah, it's interesting,
that's
isn't
something
it?
that's space to watch, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a bit like the wild, wild west at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's go and claim your bit of land, put your fence around it, start building a home. But actually nobody's done the paperwork. It kind of feels a little bit like that. I think that when what was it, round about November 2022, I think we got ChatGPT, wasn't it? And this was kind of like the game changer for creating certainly text content at that stage. And then, I mean, Mid-Journey as an AI image creation. And recently, in the last few days, I started using something called, I think it was called Runway.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
And what I did with this was incredible. So I took an image, I put it into Photoshop. I then used generative AI in Photoshop to create the side so that it was a larger image based on the existing image. Then I put this into Runway, and started adding all this motion to it. They've got this Gen 2 version of Runway, and it just absolutely blew me away. And again, a lot of these apps are still in what we call their infancy, and we're still in our AI infancy. So going back to, you were talking about specifically about images and on websites there, and it's a really interesting one. If all of a sudden there becomes some legislation around all of this and some proper legal framework around it all, that there'll probably be a landmark case, won't there? There'll be a situation where somebody will get sued a lot of money, and then you can just imagine the web community sort of, oh my God, you can imagine them all, oh, I've done that on that site and I've done that on that site, and it's going to be really, really difficult. I think this also applies in terms of legal texts as well, things that have been written, and I think that there's some potential stuff coming down the line with that as well. Not being a legal person, what I do know is that with websites that I've always built, I've always sourced any images and ensured that I'm able to provide the copyright evidence. So one of the things we'd always say to anybody is, yeah, AI may go and get all this stuff for you and populate a website for you just to give you like a starting point, but just be careful. Just have a little bit of thinking, because you're putting your trust. If you're going to build it for a client, you're going to put your trust in this builder. You don't know whether they've got it wrong, or they've gone and grabbed some images that could have some copyright issues with them. So it's definitely something that if there is any change to it, that anybody that's writing and creating the wild west AI solutions will have to be thinking about. And as a developer and a designer, your bid to perhaps create an efficiency. This is what we like about it, isn't it? It creates efficiencies for it. It cuts down the amount of time it's going to take us to build a website by pre-populating things already. Well, actually, I'll come on to my experience of that in a second, but it's kind of like, well, that's not, it doesn't always work out exactly as you want it to be. And trial and error before you start doing anything with client sites.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things there. One, in this whole podcast series, where we're talking lots of different things about web agency, we will come back to copyright issues and protecting yourself and sourcing things. But that's a separate episode. So let's come back to the AI thing. You mentioned Canva. I mean, for example, for people who don't know, one of the things you can do in Canva now, you've got a picture and you go, I'd really like to put a green plant pot in there. And before, you'd have to find a green plant pot, and then you'd copy it in there, you'd set layers up, all that sort of thing. You do your Photoshop stuff. Now you can type in, I would like a green plant pot in the front of the picture. You type that in words, obviously, and it creates the plant pot in the front of the picture. Like Mike said earlier, the prompt is everything. So depending on how good your prompt is, depends on what will turn out there, and you do have to try several times. But that's just an example. Like you say, ChatGPT is just over a year old. We started off with text that generated more text. We moved to text that generate pictures, like I've just explained. You touched on Runway. That's one of the apps that's now allowing you to create video from text. So you can literally just type in, this is what I'd like, and it will generate a video. That's very much in its infancy, and if you go try it, it's not fantastic at the moment. But hey, it didn't exist a few months ago, and it will be fantastic very soon. One of the things I really wanted to say before I go into specifically some of the things I've done is I tend to put people into groups. So I'm going to call them hardcore developers, power users, and users. And a hardcore developer is not going to touch a page builder because it's just not what they do. And then you've got developers who are like, well, I could write the code, but you know what? It's faster just to develop it using a page builder and then tweak it accordingly. Your power users are going to use page builders and they know how to do funky things in page builders, but they don't really know how to actually use any code. They can't write in a PHP, or more specifically, the CSS and the HTML, if you're talking about the design of the website. And then you've got your users who know how to load up a page builder. And if the page builder says you can have 2 columns or 3 columns, that's what they can do. The client comes and goes, I want 4 columns. It's not possible because it's not in this tool, because they're just using the tool. So those are my kind of I'm not going to talk about what I call the hardcore guys, because I'm going to focus on page builders and how we use those with AI. And you and I are not, we've been doing this for a long time. We're very experienced. That's the way I wanted to describe it. So we'll know. Yes, exactly.
Without the salt and pepper.
Back in the day, before page builders, if you wanted to write a website, you had to understand how to code HTML, and you had to understand the syntax. And that became even more important, especially with like PHP. If you put your curly bracket in the wrong place, basically the entire website died. You got the white screen of death. And so you could use a page builder and it generates code. That's what a page builder does. And if you go and look behind the scenes of the code, what it generally does is produce way more code to achieve the same result than if you just, hand coded it from scratch. It's the nature of a page builder. And that's fine until you want to go down to the site optimization and you start thinking, well, why have I got 10,000 lines of code where I only actually need 1,000? And then, you've got, again, to understand the underlying language, be it HTML or CSS or whatever. If you don't understand it, you don't know how to fix it, and you might even not know that there's a problem. And that's the case. And every time you get a different tool that makes it easier to do what you want to do. And that's where we are with AI, is AI will generate something now. And we talked about pictures and text, but it generates code now. So when it generates some code, if you don't understand how that code works, or at least, not maybe in every single line, but have an appreciation of what's good code and bad code, then we're now in that situation again where I'm using something and it produces a result, and I think that result looks great. But if there is anything, not quite right with it underlying, and that could be as simple as it's not as fast as it should be, but it could be as dangerous as it's actually doing, some malware stuff or whatever behind the scenes, and you never know until it all goes horribly wrong. That's the bit I think we have to be careful with. So having said that, I use the example of Divi. So I designed quite a few sites in Divi, and Divi have been saying for a long time now, version 5 is going to come out. We're not going to do any more updates to the core functionality of Divi, where they used to be doing them very, very regularly. They decided to break that rule with AI because they realized they couldn't stand still with AI. So what they did was they started off and introduced this thing where if you want to put a picture into a Divi website, you could click an AI button, describe what you wanted to. It would generate 4 pictures. You chose the one that you liked and the picture's in there. And the first time I used this, and we're talking less than 6 months ago, it was brilliant. I loved the picture. When I went into the media library, I realized that the picture was 3.5 meg. Now you can imagine if you've got a load of 3.5 meg pictures on one page, your page is going to take forever to load. So that was a problem. They fixed that in 2 weeks flat. And now if you generate a picture I generated one yesterday just to compare, and it's 35K. So, very, very nice, very lightweight. So you can see that they're moving forward on something as simple as that. So I generate pictures, and when I talked about, having a website in the wild that's being used now, that's what I did in terms of AI. I generated some pictures. And when you first did it in Divi, you had to say what you wanted. Now you can say what you want, or it's smart enough to look at the text on the rest of the page and go, oh, okay, I know what sort of picture you want because I understand what you're trying to do, which is pretty clever, really. And again, doesn't always get it right. But the next thing that is happening within Divi is, you'll know, Mike, that if you've got rows, you've got sections, you've got modules, in every single one of those, besides the content bit and the design bit, there's an advanced tab. And if you go in the advanced tab, you've got some CSS tabs there. You can set your class, and then you can set, the properties of that CSS class. And Divi, back in the day, that's what it had. It then moved to saying, okay, well, we'll make it easier for you, because when you go to write your CSS, it actually provides boxes. Do I want it, before the actual element? Do I want it in the middle of the element? And what that did was half write your CSS for you. So you then just had to focus on what is it I'm trying to do, so they started to make it easier for you. Now, there's a whole bunch of people who call themselves website developers who have never even clicked that advanced tab and have never put a piece of CSS in there. And now all of a sudden, when you are in any module, there's a little AI button, and you click the little AI button. And one of the things that you can do is you can generate some CSS, and it will, and it's fab. It's fab, but again, if you don't understand what that CSS is doing and how it's written, you have no idea whether it's good or bad. And this is a whole thing in its infancy. I tried something this morning, very, very simple. I just typed in, can you make this section blue? And it did. And I looked at the CSS, and it's perfect because it's only 3 lines. But that's very, very simple. When you want to start doing something a little bit more complex, it generates a whole heap of code. It pretty much works. Would I do that much code if I was starting from scratch and did it myself? Probably not. So those are some of the things, that the positives and the minuses. But the speed with which Divi, for example, Elegant Themes, change the capability of their product when it comes to AI is amazing. And they're not alone, obviously. I mean, I know you like to use Cadence. They've introduced an AI element. Even some hosting companies like Hostinger have got their own AI generated part in there. So it's all over the place. There's a very interesting site called try.new, which works a little bit like Instapage. It creates a temporarily WordPress install. It's just live for 30 minutes, but you can try anything you like in there, and it doesn't matter because, it's not any client site. It's going to go again.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Because that I saw that the other day, and that I think that's being built by AI. Yeah, so you're putting in prompts in and you're building it with AI. But before, that's something that's been in the WordPress space for quite a while, which is where you could just hit a button and you could go onto a website and you could test something out from, it will give you a 30-minute testing area. My own feeling, and I'm very conscious of time here, Martin, when we're talking about this.
I did say I could talk about this
for a long time. I'm just going to very quickly take you through my Hostinger experience, and then we're gonna wrap up, I think. So Hostinger have been really very quite aggressive in the advertising market with certainly getting their hosting out there, very sort of affordable rates. Anybody thinking of using hosting, or I would recommend them. So I thought I'd give it a bit of a go with the, automate something with AI. So started off with creating some login details, and then it asked me if I wanted to add any plugins. I thought, oh, that's quite good. And it made some suggestion of plugins that I might want. Then it said, okay, you've got some options of some templates. Okay. And some color schemes, page layouts. So each time it's sort of saying, well, what do you want? We can put this together for you. What do you want? Okay, well, I'll select that. I mean, there's limits, but I'll select that, and then I'll select my color scheme. Text style. These are all this kind of questions that we ask our clients or potential clients when we're doing websites for them. So then automating with AI, adding a brand name, then adding a very, very decent description. This is a really important part. You've got to add a description in order for the AI to work out what you're wanting to do. So I did something that was slightly, I'll call it obtuse. So it's a bit ambiguous. It could have been, it could have gone any way. So I used the name of a band that I particularly like, and I thought this will be interesting to see what they come up with. Well, they did a pretty decent job of actually understanding what I was looking for, but because I put the right description in, you then choose your domain, and away it goes. And the content it produced was just something that I could do something with, but it was very much hosting his own theme that I'd selected, because I thought, well, there was limited things of what I could do, and then obviously I could go and change it all. But if I changed it all, then it completely pulled out the site. So if you change the theme, you'll see selection of themes very important. Then you're going to start pulling things apart very, very quickly, and then you just find that you've got this bit of a mess. Stay with the theme and you're okay. And so here's where certain steps and certain things happen. If you're doing it in if Elegant Themes did this with Divi, for example, and went down the road of giving you prompts, and you just add this, and then it spat out a website for you, I would imagine that that would have a much more perhaps mature model. Because what I've always been impressed with Elegant Themes is the amount of different imaginative layouts that they have. I don't see anybody that's done in the space that's done as imaginative layouts as Elegant Themes have produced over the years. And everybody's got their different themes that they'll give you when you download their website builder and use their website builder. But ET have definitely sorted it out then. And then I thought, well, it asked me for a logo, and then it says, do you want to create an AI logo? So I thought, well, yeah, let's try that out. And again, added the same type of prompt in. Very, very basic, wasn't great. Probably my fault, maybe not the AI's fault, because the more information you give it, the more specific you are, the more chances you're going to get what you want. And this is what it is. And this is my lesson learned for anything to do with AI. It's all about the prompt and the maturity of the actual engine that you're using, or the engine that the provider is using in order to spit out your website and give you what you potentially want. And in its own way, it's a little bit like asking Alexa or Siri. Careful we don't start setting devices off. In fact, I've just set mine off.
Yeah, mine.
It's a bit by asking those devices and saying to them, can you do something for me? And if you're not specific enough, it'll just say, sorry, I don't know. Whereas AI will just produce something for you and spit it out into the ocean.
Yeah, I think the just on the template front, even before AI, one of the problems with the template produced sites is if it is exactly what you want, that's great. But if, like you say, you want to then go and edit it, you want to change the template, or you just want to make some small changes to the template itself, the way in which they're built is probably not the way in which you would have built the site, and it can take longer than building it from scratch. And I think the further we get away from building it yourself, the harder it's going to be to change anything. So, with your hosting experience, if you chose the right template first time and you're happy with it, great. You can produce a website very quickly and go, that's it. If you want to make any changes to it, at the moment, that's an issue. And that's to do with the maturity model that you talked about.
And I think also one of the things that a lot of developers use these days is advanced custom fields, custom post types. And it's rare I come across people that don't have specific needs and specific criteria and something unusual that they're going to need within their website. So the minute that you're doing that whole interview stage with your client and determining exactly what it is they're looking for and what they need, the more complex it gets, the less likely you are to potentially go down the AI route, which means that then you've got this kind of redundant piece of technology sitting there that, unless it can do all of these things and answer all these questions. And I think that was always the thing. When I started building websites, it was e-commerce straight away. I got hit with e-commerce. I was using WooCommerce out of the gate. for my very first client. And it was a huge learning curve for me using that. Here I am sort of 8 years later, and in this situation where I've seen a lot of stuff, but I still haven't seen everything. And that's amazing, isn't it? Because you've got different experiences to what I've got, and so has AI. So AI gets pumped with all this stuff, and you can do this and you can do that. But again, it'll be very, very interesting when somebody produces a website that has got a really detailed, specific set of criteria that you and I would stand back and go, whoa, that's pretty impressive. Those days are coming. They're coming.
They are. And I mean, you mentioned ChatGPT right at the top of the program. I mean, of course, one of the other things you can do is you can ask ChatGPT to generate code for you that you then put, separately put into a website. So there will be websites where you don't know that AI has been involved in the generation of that. And one of the things that's just opened up is the ChatGPT store, where third parties can create their own GPTs rather than chat one. And that's something that is my aim for this year, to produce one of those. And they specialize in certain areas. So I'm sure that we're going to see people developing GPTs that are specific for example, web design and development in Element or Bricks or whatever.
Yep.
And sell them, and then people will buy those and go, okay, this is the code generator for that, and then just go and generate sites. So even more Wild West stuff coming in.
Well,
it's fascinating, isn't it?
Well, next week we'll bring our cowboy hats, and we'll get our hammers and put our stakes in the ground and say, here we are. This is what we do. This is our AI generated application that you can download, because we actually created it in AI in the first place using the code modules.
Yeah.
So it's all there. It is very, very exciting. It's a very exciting time. And just thinking back over what we've been talking about, we talked about legality. We talked about the importance of the accuracy of these tools. And so all I would say with AI is I think it's kind of like a great thing to have in terms of being able to utilize it to provide you with a framework. And I think that if certainly with building websites at this stage, my recommendation would be keep the framework simple. And then when you dive into it, if you go into it and you need to create something, you're far less likely to have to undo what the AI has done than you are if you've given it any level of complexity where you've then just created this disappointment. Because it's interesting, isn't it? You can go so far and then you create this something you've got to then pull apart. That's not great. And I think one of the other lessons you talked about, Martin, was very much thematic through what you were saying is, okay, you're producing all of this, but do you understand what it is that you're producing? Can you pick it apart? Can you support it? More importantly. And I think those would be some of the key takeaways from today's episode. Is there anything else you want to finish with?
I think you summed that up very well. Just to say, like we said at the top, this is the start of 2024. If you're listening to this in August 2024 and thinking those guys don't know what they're talking about, that's because, as we said, with animals, children, and AI, you're at your risk when you start talking about it. Have an open mind and watch the speed with which this is developing. It is very exciting. If you're worried about very basic websites being generated by AI, you're right to be. If you are looking at skilling yourself up to do something other than the basics, then get on with it. That would be my closing thoughts.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you all for tuning into this week's episode. We've got more episodes coming up. So subscribe, you'll get the notification, you'll get told. So whether you're listening on your favorite podcast channel or you've subscribed via YouTube, come and join us. We'd love to have you on board, and we'll see you next time.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Thank you. Bye.
Hey guys, before you go, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to make sure you don't miss another episode. Please leave us a like or a review. It truly makes a difference when you leave reviews. And head over to allegiantweb.com/podcast, where you'll find a full transcript of the show, some key points, and quite a few other goodies for you. Let's build this thing together and really make a difference. All right, catch you on the next one. Bye-bye.